When I came back from work yesterday, I found something bizarre. One of my houseplants was sitting in front of the full-length mirror in the entryway, and I had never put it there. And even stranger than that, the plant was a Venus flytrap, and I don't like to keep plants in the house. I only have cacti. So whose plant was it? And why had they put it in front of the mirror? And then I saw his reflection, this man with spiky gray hair and bushy eyebrows, who looked vaguely familiar. He was wearing a strange black coat with silver stripes and carried a satchel across his chest. I couldn't see his face because he was bending down, but I could see the way his shoulders slumped. The slight tremor in his hands and the sad furrow in his brow. He reminded me of an old man I once knew. His name was Arthur, and I hadn't seen him in decades. But how could he be here? I walked toward the mirror, and when I was close enough to make out his features, I realized that it wasn't just his profile that was familiar. It was also the color of his eyes. They were the same faded green as mine. It was me, but it wasn't me. Oh, who is this old, frail man staring back at me from the mirror? And where did he come from? I didn't know what to do. Should I call out to him? Speak first? He straightened up and turned toward me. When our eyes met, he gave me a hesitant smile. It was then that I noticed the lines etched into the corners of his mouth, lines that I had always thought would one day appear on my own face. He raised his hand in greeting, and I wanted to reach out to him, but my fingers passed right through his image as though he weren't solid. With a jolt, I understood. This was a ghost who looked exactly like me. How could this be? My rational mind told me that there was a perfectly logical explanation. Okay. Been working late in the lab again and had probably stared into the spectrometer for too long. It can play tricks on your eyes, distorting your vision until you see things that aren't there. Or maybe I needed more sleep. Maybe I'd been pushing myself too hard lately. I needed to slow down. But another part of me, a small, frightened voice, whispered that this was no ghost, but a warning. A warning of what? I had no idea. As quickly as he appeared, he vanished. When I looked back into the mirror, there was no one there. I must have imagined the whole thing, I told myself, as I hurried past the mirror and into the hall. But when I glanced over my shoulder, there he was again. I spun around, startled by how real he seemed. But the moment I made eye contact with him, he disappeared, and then reappeared behind me, walking away. That's when I started to get scared. I tried to run, but he was faster, and soon pulled ahead of me. I stumbled through the house, trying to find somewhere to hide, anywhere where he couldn't find me. He was getting closer. I could hear his shallow breathing. It sounded like the wind whistling through a broken window. Then I saw an opportunity. I dashed into the bedroom and slammed the door shut just as he was passing by outside. I leaned against the door, trembling, trying to catch my breath. When I looked up, there was his reflection framed in the glass panel of the closet door. He was standing so close now that I could see the sadness in his eyes. He reached out toward me and I flinched. Then he was gone. Now I was really scared. I didn't want to be touched by a ghost, not one that looked exactly like me. What did he want from me? Why had he followed me home? Did he know something I should know? I needed to get out of the house, get away from the mirrors. But the moment I opened the front door, I felt a cold wind on my face. The sky was dark and stormy. I hurried out onto the porch, shielding my eyes from the rain. I couldn't see very far, but I thought I heard a car drive by. I strained to listen. Was that him? When I finally turned back toward the house, I could feel his presence behind me. I whirled around, but all I saw was my reflection in the wet newspaper lying on the ground. He was still there, and now he was smiling. It was a sad, knowing smile, and then he disappeared. What did it all mean? Why was this ghost haunting me? And why did he keep appearing in mirrors? I ran back inside. I had to get to the bottom of this. I paced back and forth, thinking about everything I possibly could have done to offend a ghost, accidentally inherited or stolen from him in life. I racked my brain, but nothing came to mind. I hadn't meant to shout, but then I cried out, "Why are you showing yourself to me?" The room was silent, except for the howling wind outside. I must be going crazy, I thought. Was this some kind of psychotic break? Then I remembered the plant, whoever had put that Venus flytrap in front of the mirror. They must have known that I wouldn't be able to see it during the day because of the glare. That meant it had to be someone who knew me, someone who lived here, but nobody else knows I live here. I'm the only one who has a key. So it must have been him, the ghost. But if he was a ghost, how could he have been in the house? And how could he have put the plant there without my noticing? Unless he hadn't put it there. Unless he was only visiting. Visiting from where and why? The answers eluded me, and I sat down heavily on the couch, defeated. Maybe I needed some rest. Sleep would help me sort it all out. I went to bed and dreamed of a strange world made of mirrors. A world where I walked through endless halls lined with mirrors that reflected distorted images of myself. I could hear my own screams echoing through the halls, but no matter how much I ran, I could never escape. Then suddenly I was standing in a dark forest. Tall trees loomed over me and dead leaves crunched under my feet. I could feel the dampness seeping through my shoes. I was lost and utterly alone. And then I heard a twig snap in the bushes nearby. I turned to look and saw him step out. His eyes shone with a strange light, and his mouth was twisted into a cruel smile. He beckoned to me, and I felt compelled to follow. Where, I don't know. I walked into the trees, and they closed around me, hiding me from view. I woke up suddenly, gasping for breath. Was that a premonition? Had the ghost warned me of something? I got out of bed and walked to the mirror. Looking back at me was my ghost self. He was gone. But there was something different about me. I felt different. I looked closely at my reflection and noticed something odd. The iris of my eye was a darker shade of green than usual. It was the same shade of green as his eyes, and then it hit me. This wasn't a ghost. It was me. It was my future self. A future that was somehow darker and more dangerous than the one I was living now. It wasn't a warning. It was a prophecy. But a prophecy of what? What was happening to me and why? The questions echoed in my mind as I stood staring at the mirror, waiting for my reflection to answer. You've reached a fever pitch in your research, consumed by your work to the exclusion of all else. You haven't slept properly in days and haven't eaten anything more substantial than protein bars. Your body is kept alive by sheer willpower and caffeine. You haven't noticed the strange happenings at first, dismissing them as stress-induced hallucinations. But something is amiss in your apartment, something you can't quite put your finger on. One day you come home and find something that makes your blood run cold. Sitting in front of the full-length mirror in the entryway is a plant you don't recognize. One that wasn't there when you left for work that morning. And then you see him. Staring back at you from the depths of the mirror is your reflection, except it isn't quite right. The eyes are the same color as yours, but hold a haunted, almost predatory look. Beneath the surface, you sense an intelligence that chills you to the bone. And then he smiles. Do you confront him? Confront your doppelganger? What do you do when faced with the darkest aspects of yourself? If you chose yes, let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe.